The courtroom was full that morning. Not the loud kind of full. The kind where everyone sits a little straighter and speaks a little softer because they know something is coming. The bailiff had already called for quiet twice. Nobody needed a third reminder. The cameras were positioned. The gallery was packed. And somewhere near the back, a woman in a gray cardigan pressed her hands together and whispered a quiet prayer for the man she had worked for and the man she had trusted to finally tell the truth. Judge Judy Scheinlin was already seated. She did not look up when the doors opened. She never did. She was reading the file in front of her the way a surgeon studies a chart before making the first cut. Slow, careful, certain. She had been doing this for 45 years. She had seen arrogance walk through those doors in every shape it came in. Expensive suits, confident smiles, lawyers who charged more per hour than most people earned in a week. None of it had ever impressed her. None of it ever would. Then Will Smith walked in. He moved the way he always moved. Easy. Measured. The kind of walk that said he had never once entered a room and doubted his place in it. He wore a dark gray suit. No tie. A quiet watch on his left wrist. His hair was close-cut, his face composed, the familiar warmth already spreading across his features before he had even reached a seat. The gallery stirred. A few people leaned toward each other. Someone near the aisle exhaled his name like a reflex. Will Smith adjusted his jacket, scanned the room once, and sat down. And for just a moment, one single, unguarded moment, something crossed his face that had nothing to do with cameras or composure. It was not fear exactly, but it was close. What Will Smith did not know that morning was simple. Some rooms cannot be charmed, and he had just walked into one of them. Before we go further, drop a comment and tell us where you're watching from. And if stories like this stay with you, subscribe. Tomorrow we have something even more powerful waiting for you. Long before the cameras. Long before the Grammys and the blockbusters and the name that filled stadiums. There was a boy in West Philadelphia who learned something early. Charm was armor. Words were weapons. And if you made people laugh before they could look too closely, they never saw what you were hiding underneath. His father, Willard Smith Sr., was a man of discipline and distance. He ran a refrigeration business and had served in the Air Force. He built things and fixed things and expected the men around him to do the same without complaint. He was not a cruel man, but he was not a warm one either. When Will was 13, his parents separated. He never forgot the specific silence of that house in the weeks that followed. The way certain rooms felt different. The way his father's absence filled more space than his presence ever had. There was one summer, Will was 17, when his father made him and his brother spend months tearing down and rebuilding an entire brick wall by hand. No explanation. Just the work. Will finished it. He never forgot it either. Not the blisters. Not the heat. Not the way his father walked past the finished wall without a word. He carried that silence into everything he built afterward. The music came first. Then the television show that made a generation fall in love with a version of Will Smith that was loose and funny and never seemed to hurt. Then the films. 8 consecutive movies that each crossed $100 million at the box office. The biggest star on the planet. A man who had turned Philadelphia hunger into Hollywood gold. And through all of it, the smile never cracked. The charm never slipped. The Fresh Prince mask fits so perfectly that some days even Will forgot he was wearing it. But masks have a weight. And by 2016, the weight had become something else entirely. His marriage had quietly fractured. The public did not know. His closest team did not discuss it. He had stood at his father's grave that November and whispered words he had carried for decades. And somewhere in the middle of all that wealth and recognition, he had written in his private journal that he no longer recognized the man the world was cheering for. That man was now sitting in Judge Judy's courtroom. Across the aisle sat Marcus Webb, 34 years old, former senior logistics coordinator for Will Smith's production company. He had worked there for 6 years. He had been good at his job. And 8 months ago, he had been called into a meeting, handed a document, and told to sign it or clean out his desk. The document was a non-disclosure agreement. It covered one specific event, one specific night, One specific stage in Los Angeles. Marcus did not sign. Marcus was terminated the following morning. And Marcus had spent the 8 months since then doing something Will Smith had not expected. He had waited. Quietly.
Carefully.
And he had kept everything. The case on paper was simple. But nothing about what was coming would be simple. Judge Judy opened the file and read, without looking up. The case was straightforward on its surface. Marcus Webb versus William Carroll Smith 2. Wrongful termination. NDA coercion. $340,000 in lost wages and damages. She read each line the way she read every line. Without theater. Without pause. Just the facts, laid flat and cold on the table between them. Will's attorney, a tall man in a charcoal suit named Gerald Fitch, spoke first. He moved to dismiss on the grounds of insufficient evidence. His voice was practiced and smooth. He used phrases like procedural irregularity and contractual discretion, the kind of language designed to make a simple thing sound complicated enough to disappear inside itself. Judy let him finish. Then she turned a page and said nothing. It was Will who spoke next. He leaned forward slightly, his voice warm and unhurried, the smile already in place before the words came out. "Your Honor," he said, "I want to be clear about something. Marcus and I have known each other for 6 years. This is a misunderstanding between colleagues. He's a friend." Marcus did not move. He stared at the table in front of him. His hands were flat on the surface, perfectly still. He had not been asked to speak yet. The gallery murmured softly. Someone near the back shifted in their seat. Judge Judy stopped writing. She set her pen down. She looked up slowly and found Will Smith's face with the kind of gaze that did not ask questions so much as answer them. "Mr. Smith," she said, "did I ask you for words?" The smile did not disappear, but it pulled back slightly at the corners, the way a curtain moves when someone opens a window in another room. Will recovered in under a second. He nodded, offered a small apologetic tilt of his head, and folded his hands on the table. "Of course, Your Honor. I apologize." Judy picked her pen back up. She read from Marcus's filing without ceremony. On the evening before his termination, Will Smith had called Marcus Webb directly. The call lasted 4 minutes and 12 seconds. During that call, Will had said 7 words that Marcus had written down immediately afterward and dated and saved. The words were, "You are either with me or not." Will's expression did not change. "I don't recall that call, Your Honor." Judy's pen stopped moving. She looked up again. "I've been doing this for 45 years, Mr. Smith. I know the difference between a misunderstanding and a warning." The gallery was quiet now. Not the anticipatory quiet of before. Something tighter. Will's fingers pressed flat against the table's edge. The smile was still there, but his eyes had changed. Judy reached for a second document. The bailiff standing near the door glanced at it and looked away. Something in that file had already changed the temperature of the room. She hadn't even reached the part that would silence him yet. "Stay with us. The moment that shook this courtroom is still coming." The second document was a transcript. 4 pages, single-spaced, obtained through a legal subpoena of telecommunication records. Judy did not announce what it was. She simply began to read. The words were Will Smith's own. Every line of that 4-minute call, recorded and time-stamped, and now being spoken aloud in a room full of cameras and witnesses, and one man who had staked 6 years of his life on the belief that his employer was someone worth trusting. Marcus kept his eyes on the table. His breathing was slow and steady. He had already read the transcript. He knew every word. Hearing them out loud was something different. Will leaned toward Gerald Fitch. His voice was low, but not low enough. "How did she get that?" Fitch touched his arm once and said nothing. Judy finished the final page and set the transcript down. She removed her glasses. She did not reach for the gavel. She simply looked at Will Smith the way a person looks at something they have seen too many times before and are tired of pretending to be surprised by. "Mr. Smith," she said. Her voice was even, not angry, not theatrical, just certain. "You have spent 30 years building a man the world wanted to believe in. You were careful about it. You were very good at it. And then, in 11 seconds on a stage in Los Angeles, you showed everyone who you actually are when someone pushes back and you believe no one can stop you. The gallery did not make a sound. Marcus looked up from the table for the first time. Will's voice came back controlled, but thinner than before. Your Honor, that night was a reaction. I was protecting my family. Judy did not blink. You were protecting your ego. There is a difference between the two. And somewhere inside you, you have always known that. 3 seconds passed. The hum of the air system above was the only sound in the room. The cameras stayed on Will Smith's face. His jaw moved once, like he was testing a response before deciding against it. His hands, the same hands photographed 10,000 times, on red carpets, at charity events, waving at crowds, pressed hard into the edge of the table. And then something happened that no one in that room had prepared themselves for. His voice dropped. The performance left it entirely. What remained was quieter and rougher and real. You don't know, he said, what it cost me to sit back and smile my whole life. The gallery exhaled as one. Marcus looked directly at him. Even Judy was still. It was not an excuse. It was not an apology. It was something rarer than either. A wound, finally visible, in a room full of people who had come expecting a fight and received a confession instead. Judy let the silence hold for a moment. Then her voice came back, and it was not softer exactly, but it had changed in some way that was hard to name. It carried something older, something that had been earned over decades of watching men carry the wrong things for too long. I know what it costs, she said. I watched men like your father build walls instead of sons for 40 years on this bench. The question has never been what it cost you, Mr. Smith. The question is what you did with the bill. Will Smith did not speak. He did not reach for the smile. He did not look at his attorney or the gallery or the cameras. He looked at the surface of the table in front of him, and for the first time in 30 years of public life, he had nothing to say. Judy reached for her gavel. The ruling was coming. But first she had one more thing to say. And what she said next, no one in that room, including Will Smith, would ever forget. Judy did not strike the gavel yet. She set it down beside her hand and looked at the papers in front of her one final time. Then she looked up. Not at the gallery. Not at the cameras. At Will Smith. This court finds in favor of the plaintiff, Marcus Webb, she said. The defendant, William Carroll Smith II, is ordered to pay full damages in the amount of $340,000. Furthermore, this case is being referred to the California Labor Board for formal review of non-disclosure coercion practices. Gerald Fitch was on his feet before she finished the sentence. Your Honor, we will be appealing this ruling on the grounds of. You are welcome to appeal, Judy said, without turning toward him. The record will follow you everywhere you take it. Fitch sat down. But the ruling was not the reckoning. The reckoning came after it. Judy turned back to Will, and this time the formality was gone. What remained was something quieter and more permanent. You told that young man, she said, that he was either with you or he was not. Mr. Smith, that is not loyalty. That is fear wearing loyalty's clothes. And I think you have been wearing that particular outfit for a very long time. Will did not move. You have a son, she continued. Her voice was steady and unhurried. And one day he will sit somewhere. Not on a red carpet, not at an awards show, somewhere ordinary and quiet. And someone will ask him what kind of man his father was. Not the Fresh Prince. Not the actor. Not the name on the poster. The man. The one who showed up when it cost something. Will's eyes glistened. He did not blink them clear. He did not look away. Judy's final words came slowly, placed with care, like stones being set into the ground one at a time. The slap did not break your legacy, Mr. Smith. What broke it was the silence that followed. The months of managing and calculating and crafting. The refusal to simply be seen without the performance. The courtroom was perfectly still. Will turned his head and looked at Marcus Webb. Not the practiced look of a man managing a public moment. A direct look. Unguarded. Marcus met it and held it. Neither of them spoke. But something passed between them in that silence that no attorney had written and no camera could fully capture. Judy gave Marcus a small nod. The kind she reserved for people who had walked through something ugly and come out the other side with their dignity still intact. "You held your ground," she said quietly. "That matters." Marcus nodded once. His hands finally relaxed on the table. The gavel came down. Single, clean, final. But what happened in the hours after that ruling would travel much further than any verdict ever could. If this story is reaching something in you, share it with someone today. They may need it more than you know. Within 3 hours, the clip was everywhere. Not the ruling, not the legal language or the attorney's objection or the damage amount. What traveled was 11 seconds of silence. Will Smith sitting completely still, hands flat on the table, the performance gone, nothing left between him and the room but the truth Judy had just set down in front of him. The headlines read what headlines always read. But the comment sections told a different story. Thousands of people writing about their own fathers, their own masks, the smiles they had learned to wear before they were old enough to know why, the bills they were still paying for decisions made by people who were supposed to protect them. The clip had stopped being about Will Smith somewhere around the second million views. It had become about something else. Something people recognized from the inside. Trey Smith, Will's eldest son, the boy whose early years had passed largely without his father present, watched the clip. Then he watched it again. Then a third time. He did not post anything. He did not call any reporter. He simply watched his father sit in a room and finally stop performing. And whatever that meant to him, he kept it quietly to himself. Will issued no statement. His team said nothing. For the first time since the night in Los Angeles that had fractured everything, there was no crafted response. No carefully worded paragraph released at a strategic hour. Just silence. But it was a different kind of silence than before. Not the silence of avoidance. Not the silence of management. A single photograph circulated late that afternoon. Will Smith sitting alone in the back seat of a black car parked outside the courthouse. Head down. No phone in his hand. No one beside him. No performance left to give. The world had seen Will Smith cry before, but they had never seen him simply stop. Whether that stillness became something real, only time would tell. There is a wall in West Philadelphia that a 17-year-old boy built with his own hands one summer. Brick by brick. In the heat. Without praise. Without explanation. He finished it. He stood back and looked at what he had made. And when no one came to acknowledge it, he learned something that took him 30 more years to unlearn. He learned that the only way to make people see you was to build something so large and so impressive that they had no choice. So he built. He built music and movies, and a smile the whole world recognized. He built a persona so complete and so convincing that it stopped being something he wore and became something he lived inside. And the wall kept going up, long after the boy needed it. Long after the man inside it was asking to be let out. What happened in that courtroom was not a punishment. It was not a defeat. It was something far more rare. It was a witness. One woman, with 45 years of truth-telling behind her, simply refused to look away. And in being truly seen, not the performance, not the legacy, not the name, something in him went quiet in a way it had never been quiet before. The masks we build to survive can become the walls that trap us. Every person who has ever smiled through something that was breaking them understands that. The bravest thing a man can do is not fight back. It is to finally, after all the noise and the building and the proving, go quiet enough to hear the truth. Will Smith walked into that courtroom as a brand. He walked out as something more fragile and more honest. A man. Just a man. Sitting with what he had built, and wondering, for the first time, whether any of it had been worth the cost. If this story reminded you that the masks we wear to survive can become the walls that trap us, like this video, leave a comment, and share it with someone who needs to hear it today. We will see you in the next one.